My husband is never jealous and I am growing resentful. I have been married to my husband for 12 years, 13 together, 3 kids. He proposed 6 months after he got together and told me he knew by the second date. He is indeed very practical and rational. He is also very caring, kind and supportive, just really a wonderful partner, except for one thing, he doesn't get jealous, like at all. By that I mean if someone flirts with me he will just chuckle and move on, sometimes leading me to deal with them alone. When his friend's father spent the entire night of his son's wedding hitting on me he just said PFF what a loser and moved on. I even had an ex write a poem and post it tagged me, still he just said wow cool, and when I say how come you are not jealous he says what would I trust you. Last week I reached my boiling point. A month ago there were some workers transferred to our department, among them was my ex. We broke up amicably, he moved to a different country and we kept a very shallow contact, like once a year for a happy birthday text. When I went home I immediately told my husband and he said cool and then started talking about STHLs. I snapped. Not my proudest moment, but I said, are you serious? I just told you I'm working with the ex I stayed with for years and you don't care. He said, what do you want me to say? I know you and I know you are extremely loyal. I know you will never cross any boundaries. I completely trust you, so why would I be jealous? Now I know I will never cross any boundaries. We never had that issue in our relationship. I am crazy about my husband. He is the one and only. I have spent my life showing him how much I love him because I really do, but being jealous I see it as an expression of love, and in being so cold and indifferent is making me resentful and I hate it. It just feels like he has taken me for granted. I am hurt and he has been more affectionate than usual but hadn't referred to that argument again. How do I navigate these feelings? It seems silly but I am hurt. Update. Hello again. So I got a lot of messages, advice, and yes, insults. It is okay, I see why. By the way, I just had a baby and someone told me this is important, it might have added to my insecurities. I followed your advice and talked to my husband. I started by apologizing to him and he said it is okay, I just want to understand where this is coming from, so I explained. By jealous I didn't mean him getting controlling or violent or even throwing a fit. I understand I expressed myself poorly. I meant I wanted him to show he cares enough to have a back-off attitude when SB hits on me in front of him, or just ask how is it at work. Him not caring, I took it as him taking me for granted and not loving me or finding me attractive. He was shocked, he laughed and said, how did you jump from me trusting you to me not loving you, lol. He then explained his side, he said a lot but here is the gist. I don't get jealous because I feel it is disrespectful to you. I don't say anything either because I keep thinking you don't need my protection, but I see your point and then I will change. But I am not jealous because the notion of you betraying me is just foreign. I know you and I know how much you love me, and believe me, that is STH I will not take for granted. There were many instances that cemented my trust in you. For example, when 1 month after we started dating, I saw you turning down a guy who looked like a movie star and we haven't even talked about being exclusive yet. I didn't know he saw that. When you stood by my side when I lost my dad, when you sold your dear car because I needed an urgent surgery, anytime you initiate sex I am singing inside, the sweet notes I find randomly in my bag, etc. The point is I feel secure and comfortable. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I work with a lot of guys, I hear horror stories, while there is me who can't wait to finish to go running back home to be with you. I told him about how he feels when I sometimes get jealous. He just laughed. He said, I always find it cute that you think I can see and be with someone else. I am all yours, body, soul and heart. This man. He then said I had an ex who kept on flirting with guys and then eventually cheat. It was nerve-wracking. I was on edge, anxious, worried. Now I am at peace, so me trusting you is me loving you and being at peace knowing that we can be ocean apart. I know you will respect us. Now let me ask you about this ex. Have you had any inappropriate conversation? Any one-on-one lunches/dinners? Any lines crossed? And I said no, and no OFC. He just smiled and said, I knew it, but I can see how you have been not yourself lately and I am sorry if I did anything that makes you doubt how much I love you. I will work on that, I promise. Then he got to the part that I was avoiding. He said given how and where I was raised and how my parents have been, he isn't that surprised I mistook jealousy for love. For context, my parents have been together for years but should have divorced years ago. It is a constant cycle of love/hate relationship. Dad used to even beat me and then say that it was because he loves me so much and is worried about what kind of person I will be. So we talked about therapy. I will be going next week. He also suggested a couple counseling because he wanted to learn how to be a better husband. We also talked about different love languages, future plans, etc. He called his mom, and asked her to take care of the kids while we went on a date. We had dinner and then had ice cream. When we reached our home, I was laughing hard at his dad jokes. It kinda his thing. So he suddenly hugged me long and said, "Welcome back, love. I missed you." I melted. So now he is sleeping with his head on my lap. I wanted to thank you all for your advice, kind and even harsh words. I needed them. To be honest, I am still scared of therapy because I know how ugly it is going to get. Maybe this is why I have postponed it for so long, but my family and I deserve to have my own best version, so if that means slaying some inner demons, then I'll do it. Thank you again, everyone. My husband of 13 years is against having our cat euthanized, implies I want to murder the cat for being an inconvenience. We've had our cat for 7 years. We don't know how old he is, as we adopted him from a deceased neighbor and he was already an adult. We think he's likely pretty old, but there's no way to tell. A year ago, he began acting strange. I won't go into it, but we knew something was wrong. I took him to the vet, and they decided it was hyperthyroidism. This is a very manageable condition, so they put him on some medication. He didn't get better. He became anorexic and went from 9 pounds to 5 pounds. We kept adjusting his hyper-T meds, but his T4 count dipped dangerously low at some point and he had to be taken off of it. He's now partially blind, partially deaf, can only eat about 25% of what he needs to sustain him, can't get to the litter box on his own, is racked with severe twitches at all times, lacks the strength to hold his head all the way up or walk correctly, and he walks almost exclusively in clockwise circles. It is heartbreaking to watch him. Sometimes I wonder if he's in there at all. He'll get stuck in an obvious loop. There's no question that there are severe cognitive difficulties going on. Our vet, after months of tests and observation, chalks this up to old age and, probably, brain lesions. I don't know if I totally agree, but it doesn't matter. I lack the resources to get a third or fourth opinion. We've seen 2 vets now. I've spent thousands since he fell ill: vet bills, lab fees, special foods, medications, supplements, etc., and have run out of emergency pet care funds. I have to syringe feed him 3 times per day. A syringe feeding takes about 40 minutes to do. He copes pretty well with it, but it's an enormous undertaking. He's on choline, B12, lysine, potassium, iron, Miralax, and a high-calorie supplement, which he takes 3 times per day, with each feeding. He pees on the floor often, because his hyper-T makes him drink and urinate very often, and he can't get to the litter box on his own. He's stopped cleaning himself, so I also have to bathe him weekly. He has trouble regulating his body temp, so I also have to monitor that and keep him heated or cooled accordingly, heating pad, etc. Mind you, I do all of this myself. My husband might refill his water dish or clean up a puddle of urine here and there, but that's it. It's an enormous responsibility. At least 1/4 of my waking hours are devoted wholly to the cat, and most days, that's more like 1/3. I've been doing it since May of last year. I'm tired. I can't make this cat better. He's never going to be better. I keep putting food and supplements into him so he won't starve to death, and to be honest, I could probably keep him alive like this for quite a while. But to what end, you know? I'm not convinced he still has the capacity for happiness, and for me personally, that's my line. I'm ready to let this cat go. And I want to be clear that it isn't because it's a lot of work to keep him alive, but because the amount of work that goes into it isn't doing anything but keeping him alive. And I feel that is a selfish reach for a mere technicality. Husband does not agree. He doesn't believe in euthanasia unless the animal is in clear, constant pain. Our cat is not in clear, constant pain, he's just not really there at all and hardly able to function. To my husband, life-death. It's incredibly black and white to him. He remarks on this often. Look at him sitting in his cat bed, he looks happy, this is a moment he's sure to appreciate having the opportunity to live. Okay? If you say so. I'd be willing to have a conversation about this and hope that we can come to some sort of compromise or understanding, but he's honestly become a bit of a dick about it. Last month, we were talking about the possibility of having him put down. He grabbed the cat up and kind of cuddled him to his chest, and said to him, "Sounds like she's ready to just give up on you." I told him that was completely unfair and that no one has put in the amount of effort I have to make this cat better/comfortable. It made me cry and I left the room. He eventually came to me and admitted that was an awful thing to say. He apologized and acknowledged that I'm the one putting in the work and it wasn't his place to make those judgments. I forgave him, but we never continued the conversation because the wound was still a bit tender. Fast forward to last night, he's holding the cat and remarking about how high maintenance he's become, kind of jokingly, but also an acknowledgement to my having spent a long time that day feeding and cleaning up after him. But then he says to the cat really clearly, "But we're not going to murder you just because you're an inconvenience." It was all I could do to not completely blow the fuck up. Fucking seriously? I mean, sure, that's easy to say when you're not the one who has to do it all. And if we're being frank here, if it were up to my husband, this cat would have starved to death months ago, because there is absolutely no way in hell he'd have the discipline to shovel food into this cat's mouth 3 times a day. Not even fucking remotely possible. In fact, he's told me multiple times to just stop syringe feeding the cat, with the implication that nature will run its course. How is that not murder? God, I'm getting furious just typing that. How dare he say such a thing? I'm so mad. I understand and respect that he's got some kind of ethical issues about the merit of euthanasia, but at this point, I'm hard-pressed to give a fuck. I know if I went and had the cat put down on my own, he'd never forgive me. Never. What a fucked up, impossible situation, and this poor cat is stuck in limbo, just making it from one feeding to the next. And now I'm thinking we shouldn't own pets together ever again. And I am so happy we decided to not have kids. TLDR, husband and I disagree on having our pet humanely euthanized, and he keeps implying I want to murder the cat or give up on him, despite the fact I do all the work to keep him alive. Update. It's been a little over a month since I made that last post, and I want to thank all the commenters for their advice, but one commenter specifically who I feel really helped me better understand my husband's position, if not his behavior, and made confronting him about this go a lot smoother. It sounds to me like he doesn't really want to deal with death as anything more than an abstract concept, something that just happens, rather than something you have to accept and prepare for. If you just don't think about it, it doesn't seem real, you know? It's scary and difficult, so avoiding really thinking about it is understandable. That could be why he's not helping you with the care that would force him to acknowledge the reality of the situation, and why he is hinting that a natural starvation death is better. Because if the cat dies without you making the choice to help, it's just a thing that happened he has to accept, rather than any choice he had to think about. I think he needs to talk, really discuss, death, to try and get to the root of this fear. It's a hard situation, and you seem to be dealing with it completely differently, more realistically, for one than him, and he may seem resentful because he can't get to the place of acceptance that you have with the inevitable. You really nailed this, you/Talian Faye. I think a lot of this has to do with my mom dying, which is still very fresh for us all. Her death touched us in different ways. For me, it gave me a weird manic complex about having to save the cat. Looking back, that had to be unhealthy for me. I can't really stress how much of my time went into caring for the cat. And I can sit here and say my husband wouldn't help me do any of it, and it'd be partially true. But the bigger part of the truth? None of his efforts would have been good enough, because my standards were so unreasonably high. I didn't really want him involved, because his investment didn't match mine. I couldn't at the time I made that post, but I can admit that now. Some of the blame there is my own. For him, my mom's death has made him face his own mortality. He turned 40 last month, and he's been very avoidant of death. Almost angry whenever it's brought up, you know? I can't really relate to how his experience with the cat must have been, because I was too busy trying to be a hero about it. We were both unfairly projecting things onto the cat for me, my mom, for him, himself. I understand that now. Only, accepting that the cat couldn't be saved and it was just his time to go? I think that was good for me. In a kind of roundabout way, it helped me better accept my mom's death. But for him, it was nothing like that. Accepting the cat's death, even having a direct hand in it, led to a much darker place. But knowing all that, I was able to have a more productive conversation with him. He still didn't want to do it. He even openly confessed that he knew putting the cat down was the objectively right thing to do, and that he understood where I was coming from, but he just couldn't get past being the direct cause of his death. Playing God, he called it. He kept saying all these things about how the cat could still dream, could still lay in the sun, could still be petted and curl up in his bed, and if he died, he'd lose those things. I read something online, and I don't have a link and can't remember it verbatim, but it went something like, animals don't think of the future and don't fondly recall the past. They only know what's happening right now. They aren't humans, I explained to him. They don't have a concept of this might be better tomorrow, the medication might start working, a miracle might happen. So it's unfair to project human concepts onto them. They don't have the ability to put the pleasure of an afternoon laying in the sunshine above suffering, because that suffering will eclipse it. It wasn't just one conversation. We kept it going. I told him how it hurt to imply I was trying to murder the cat, or that I only wanted him gone because of convenience, and he apologized. He said he felt embarrassed about reacting that way, but that it was more internally directed at himself than me. I also recruited his mom. We didn't gang up on him or anything, but I felt like it'd be helpful to have someone outside of the situation speak to him about it, and I think it was. About a week after I made that post, the cat began showing blood in his urine. I told my husband it was time. I wasn't willing to walk into the vet's office with only the intention of treating a trivial bladder problem. To what end? And I also wasn't willing to watch him strain to urinate and be in obvious pain. Neither was acceptable. He agreed that this was the objectively right course of action. But it was very hard on him. I made the decision on a weekend, so we had to wait for Monday morning. This gave us a couple great last days with our baby. I felt like my husband mostly avoided thinking of it until Monday morning, though. When it came, the cat was having a very rare good day. This went two very different ways for us. I was glad. I thought, his last day on this earth isn't going to be awful. He ate more than usual, he was more alert than usual. He'll be ending his life on a positive note. I was relieved. But this caused my husband a lot of agony. I'm sure you can imagine. He's having such a good day for once, can't he just enjoy it? He wanted to put it off, but I said no. Because then we just want to put it off another day, then another day, then another day. There was never going to be a good day for it. He couldn't come with me to have it done, which was something I completely understood and was okay with. I had another family member ready to go with me so that I wasn't alone. I don't want to go into everything that happened because it's still a bit fresh and was very upsetting, but I will say that watching my husband's last goodbye to that cat was probably the most gutting, heartbreaking thing I've ever witnessed. I've been with this man for almost 14 years. I've seen him upset, I've seen him sad, I've seen him cry. This grief was a whole new level. And if I ever had doubts about his love for that cat, then I was wrong, and I feel ashamed for ever thinking it. We buried him together, in our backyard, beneath a shady tree. We still have the instinct that we have a cat. We still look around our feet when we push out our computer chairs to make sure we won't run over something. I still wake up at 3 a.m. and get that moment of panic that I've missed a syringe feeding. He still closes the hallway door, even though there's nothing to keep out of the back rooms. I still wake up and expect something to meet me when I enter the living room. We still find ourselves setting aside little scraps of meat on our dinner plates, but quickly eating them instead. It's been very difficult, but every day gets a little better. It's probably the first time in the last 3 years we haven't had illness or death hanging like a cloud over our lives. Thanks again for all your advice and well wishes. They really meant a lot to me. Edit, I can't reply to every single one, but I just really want to thank everyone for sharing their stories here about their own experiences with their pets. It may seem silly, but those kinds of comments on this post, and especially the last one, were such a huge help to me. I didn't have much support at the time. No one came along and reassured me, "You're not making a mistake, this is the right thing." I just kind of had to be the main advocate and wrap it into the prettiest package possible so I could sell it to my husband as the right thing. The vet wouldn't even come in and talk to me without my paying a complete exam fee. No one offered those kinds of words to me. So you all have no idea how major a support system that was, and continues to be, for me. Thank you so much. TLDR, sometimes life is about making the hard choices, and we did.